Hello everyone and welcome back to Lick Library. My name is Lee Fuge, and in this video today we're going to talk about 5 essential things that all beginner electric guitar players need to learn. So when you're starting your guitar journey, there are certain things that you should probably learn because these things will help push you along that road. Now obviously when you start playing an instrument, especially the guitar, as you may already know if you've already tried this, there's a huge array of stuff to learn, and at first it can be quite scary. But in this video we're going to talk about 5 things that you should definitely learn to get you on the right track. We're going to talk about some power chords, basic scale that you can learn, a 12-bar blues, some classic riffs, and also some techniques that you should also get under your fingers. Now when you're starting out with the guitar, just remember it's going to be hard work, but it should always be fun. So all of the things I talk about in this video aren't going to be that difficult. They're going to be things that are going to be incredibly useful to you, but they're also going to be fun to learn. If you want to skip ahead to any specific technique or part of this video, they're all going to be timestamped down below in the description, so you can just scroll down and hit the timestamp down there and it'll take you straight to that part of the video. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is something called a power chord. Now this is essential for all guitar players. Now the chances are, if you're learning the electric guitar, you're probably leaning more into the rock world of things. So if you're going to be learning classic rock, blues, punk, heavy metal, whatever, you're probably going to be using power chords. Now they're not exclusive to rock-based styles of guitar, so this is going to appeal to anyone that's watching this video regardless of what you're going to learn, but they do tend to appear more often in the rock-based side of things. So a power chord is a really simple chord shape that we can play anywhere on the electric guitar. We can do it with multiple different finger combinations. This is going to be something you're going to use a lot. So I'm going to show you a basic power chord shape. We're going to start from the 5th fret here of the low E string. So I'm actually playing that with my index finger. Now what I also want to do is I want to play the 7th fret on the A string and on the D string. Now this is where we can use a couple of different hand shapes here to help us. So this is completely up to you, whatever feels easier. So you can play this with your index finger playing the lowest note, and then you can play those 2 notes with your 3rd finger pressing down both of them. Or you can use your 3rd finger for the A string, your little finger for the D string. Or, as you may have seen me do at the start of the video, I actually play both those strings with my little finger like this. If playing the 3 strings is too tricky, you can just play the low E and the A string like so, either with your 3rd finger or your little finger. Doesn't really make a difference to the sound of the chord, it's really just about how that feels to you. So that first power chord I played was an A power chord. Now in the early stages you don't really need to know too much about the layout of the fretboard, that will come in time. But just further down the road, when you do start to learn that kind of stuff, you'll notice all this stuff fitting together in your mind. So that note there is an A note. So if I play a power chord shape on an A note, I get an A power chord. Now the cool thing with power chords is I can move them around. So if I move my A note to the 8th fret here, which is now a C note, and I play that same shape, I have a C power chord. Likewise, if I come back to the 3rd fret, which is a G, and I do that same shape, I have a G power chord. This is also true if I take my lowest note and put that on the A string. So let's say I'm coming to the 5th fret of the A string here, and then I'm playing the 7 on the D and G. This is now a D power chord because my lowest note here, the 5th of the A, is a D note. If I go to the 3rd fret, which is a C, that's now a C power chord. You'll notice the notes of the C power chord here are the same as the ones here. So the cool thing with guitar is that we can do a lot with very little. So power chords are an essential thing to learn. Now those power chords are all based on the lowest note, which is known as the root note, being fretted. But we can actually play these with open strings as well. So if I take my open low E string here, and I apply my power chord shape on top of that, obviously I can't because I'm not fretting that low note. But what I'm actually doing is I'm playing the 2nd fret here on the A and D strings. And that'll give me an E power chord. If I play the open A string and then the 2nd fret on the D and G like so, that's going going to be an A power chord. So I have these open power chords, and then I have these power chords where I'm actually fretting the lowest note. Like I said, these are going to be an essential part of your guitar learning, so make sure you get these chord types under your fingers. There are a ton of great riffs that are exclusively power chord based, so you definitely need to know how to play these. The second thing we're going to learn is what's called a minor pentatonic scale. Now again, you don't need to worry too much about the theory of this, because at this point we're not really worrying too much about theory. Think of this as a collection of notes or a shape of notes on the fretboard. So we're going to do this in the key of A, which means I'm starting once again from that A note, and I'm going to be doing this scale shape. So what I played there was the 5th and the 8th fret on the low E, the 5th and the 7th fret on the A, D and G, and the 5th and 8th on the B and E. And then I just played the same thing backwards. Scales are very, very useful guitar tools when it comes to playing lead guitar. So if we're learning guitar solos and we're playing and jamming with other musicians, using those scales are going to give us a roadmap of what notes we can play over certain chords and certain chord progressions. So with that being an A minor pentatonic scale, if you're jamming in the key of A minor, that will work fine. Now, like power chords, we can move this around like a shape. So I said that 5th fret there was an A note. If I now come up to the 8th fret, which is the C note, but then I play the same shape, so the same distance of notes, but this time it's 8 and 11 and 8 and 10 being my notes. I now have a C minor pentatonic scale. So if my jam or my song is going to be in the key of C minor, I can use the scale in that position, combined with the techniques we learn later on in this video, to jam over that. The third thing we're going to learn is the 12-bar blues. Now, this is probably the essential jamming thing for all guitar players. It doesn't matter what background you come from as a guitar player, you're probably going to be able to take part in a blues jam. So we're going to do this in the key of A. There are more complex ways to do this, but for now, let's just focus on the easiest way we can play this. So this is a chord progression that is 12 bars in length, and it uses 3 chords, A, D, and E. And we're going to do these all as open position power chords, just on 2 strings. So my A is going to be the open A string and the 2nd fret on the D. That's my A chord. My D is going to be the open D string and the 2nd fret on the G. And then my E is going to be the open low E and the 2nd fret on the A. Now what I'm going to be doing is playing that chord, so let's say my A again, and I'm also going to be adding the 4th fret on the same string. So I'm alternating between the 2nd and the 4th fret here on the D string with the open low A string. I'm going to be doing that for each of the other chords as well. So when it comes to the D, it's the open D and the 2nd on the G, and then I'm switching to the 4th on the G, and the same with the low E. I'm going to be playing this in a rhythm style known as a shuffle. Now again, don't worry too much about the theory of this, just think of this as how it sounds. So we've got our basic pulse going all the way through, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's our basic 4-beat pulse there. Now what I'm going to do to make this sound like a shuffle is I'm going to add another note right before each beat. I'm going to say this as a. So it's 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. This gives it a bit of a shuffle feel. So it'll sound like this. This rhythm is important because I'm going to be using this rhythm to go back and forth from the 2nd to the 4th fret on whatever chord I'm playing. So I'm going to start on the A. We're going to do 4 bars of an A chord. On each beat, we're going to do that shuffle rhythm. I'm going to alternate between the 2nd and the 4th frets. So you'll notice what I did there is I played 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1. I'm going back and forth. So I'm going to do 4 bars of the A chord. That's going to sound like this. Then I'm dropping down to the D chord for 2 bars. Back to the A chord for 2 bars. Then I'm going to the E chord for 1 bar, the D chord for 1 bar, the A chord for 2 bars. So that's 4 bars of A, 2 bars of D, 2 bars of A, 1 bar of E, 1 bar of D, 2 bars of A. Now that might sound like a lot to remember, so you might want to rewind that a little bit and write that down. It's going to sound like this in full. So if you're with another guitar player and you want to do a blues jam in A, that chord progression will get you through that jam for as long as you need to. You can also play over that with that A minor pentatonic scale that I just showed you. The fourth thing that we're going to talk about is technique. There's a huge amount of techniques out there for guitar players to learn. We're going to focus on just a few simple ones today. So we're going to talk about hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, and string bends. Each of these techniques is worth learning because you can use them to build riffs and guitar solos. So a hammer-on is when we play a note. So here I'm playing the 5th fret of the D string and I'm hammering onto the 7th fret. I'm not picking again. The momentum comes from my 3rd finger on my fretting hand. It's that hammering motion that creates the 2nd note. The opposite of this is called a pull-off, so that's when I have both fingers in place already and I'm playing the higher note, in this case the 7th fret of the G, and I'm pulling off to the 5th fret. The sound here comes from the pull-off activating the string again, but what you want to do here is instead of just lifting your finger up, you want to flick it downwards at a slight angle, and this effectively strums the string again. We can use this in exactly the same way as hammer-ons. It's essentially the opposite technique. We can also learn slides. This is when we play a note with a finger and then we slide it to a target note. So again, we'll just do the 5th to the 7th here on the D string. We can also work backwards. So we can ascend a slide and descend. A great exercise to work on these techniques is to take that A minor pentatonic scale we just learnt and use each of these techniques. So I'm going to ascend the scale with hammer-ons, descend it with pull-offs. You'll notice I was using different fingers there for the pull-offs and hammer-ons each time as well. This is definitely worth getting used to. You can also do the same exercise with slides. So we can slide from the lowest note to the highest on the way up the scale, and then the highest note to the lowest on the way back down. Now you'll notice there I did all those slides with my index finger. A great exercise here is to use different fingers. So do that same exercise up and down with each finger. So start with your index finger and work through each finger till you get to your little finger. And the last technique is string bends. This is when we take a note and we bend it to match the pitch of another note. So I'll give you a quick example of string bends. This is going to be called a full step or a full tone bend. So I'm going to take this note here on the 7th fret of the G, and I'm going to bend it until it matches the pitch of the 9th fret. A full step or a full tone is 2 frets worth of distance on the guitar. So when we do a bend, we're going to play the bend note with our 3rd finger, and we're going to use our 1st and 2nd fingers also playing the string behind the finger that's fretting the note to support the bend. If you try and bend with a single finger, you're taking all the tension of the string on that one fingertip. So you want to spread this tension out by using other fingers to support the bend. So what I'm going to do as a good exercise is I'm going to play that note, listen to that pitch, get that pitch in your head, then go 2 frets down and bend that note up until it matches the pitch you just heard. The great thing with this is having that target note will tell you if you're sharp or flat. So if I bend too far, they're going to sound like different notes. And if I don't bend far enough, it's also going to be the same thing. So I can really hear the distance there and work on that. String bends are essential, but they are quite tricky, so you will need to spend a bit of time with that, working on not only your finger strength, but your ear training as well. The 5th and final thing that all beginner electric guitar players should learn, one of the essential things you should do as you're progressing on your guitar journey, is just learn some classic riffs. Now, like I said at the start of the video, learning guitar should be fun. It should be a fun process for you from start to finish. Even though there is going to be times where you're going to be working hard, you still want to have fun, right? So learn your favorite riffs. One thing I like to do is if I'm working on a particular technique, I will find a riff that uses that technique. So in this video, we talked about hammer-ons and pull-offs in another section. So I'm going to play 2 riffs now that use both hammer-ons and pull-offs in different ways. So these are both classic riffs. There are a ton of other classic riffs out there as well, but I'm going to play Derek and the Dominos, Layla. Now that riff not only uses hammer-ons and pull-offs, but it also uses power chords. Another cool riff you can learn is the Black Sabbath riff Paranoid. This riff uses power chord shapes, but I'm doing a hammer-on into the power chord shape. It also uses ascending hammer-ons. So it's a pretty good riff for using those techniques. Now obviously, like I said, those are just 2 riffs that I would recommend checking out and learning, but there are a ton of other riffs out there. Let me know down below in the comments what your favourite classic riffs are that are great for beginners that use power chords and some of the techniques we've talked about in this video. Thank you all so much for watching this video on 5 essential things that all beginner electric guitar players need to learn. If there are any tips and tricks you think a beginner guitar player should definitely check out and learn, throw it down below in the comments as well. If you are new to playing guitar and you want to take your guitar playing to that next level, you can head over to the Lick Library website and sign up for the lesson library over there. All of these things are talked about in much more depth, so you can really fine-tune all your techniques and your really cool classic riffs over there as well. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the Lick Library YouTube channel. There are a ton more videos just like this, plenty of free educational stuff to kickstart your guitar playing journey. Thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon.